What about actually a soap box for soaping? Is it ready? Do you know how to line it? What if you don't have a silicone mold? What if you found a soap mold or something that would work for a soap mold and you needed to figure out how to line it? Well, there's several different ways. Today I'm going to show you how to line a soap mold with freezer paper. Easy, affordable, and doable, even if you're all thumbs like me. First of all, you want to take a piece of freezer paper, and I just take mine out of the box. It makes life a lot easier. What you want is a piece of freezer paper that is a little longer than your mold because it has to go down over the ends of the mold and work like that. This one does not work this way, although it's just the right perfect fit. It does not create the sides that we want, or the ends actually, without making it into more than one piece. The object is to keep it all one piece. Now, there may be a better way to do this. I'm not saying this is the only way. This is the way I learned, more or less, and I kind of adapted it a bit to make it work for me. You may find somebody else has a better idea, or you have a better idea. If so, please share it with me. The next thing I do is there's a paper side that has a dull finish on the freezer paper, and the opposite side is like a shiny side. It has a wax paper coating. The wax paper coating is what I am going to have on the soap business side of things when I complete the lining of the mold. What I do is I turn it over to the paper side because I want to do some sketching on this and some indentations of where the soap mold edges are. I really want to mark both the inside and the outside of the soap mold along all four edges. And then I take a pencil, whoops, and kind of draw a line on the edge of the inside line of the soap mold so that I know that's the inside and I can see it without any problem when I've got it down on the table later. It doesn't matter if your lines are perfectly straight, but you do want to try to follow alongside that line so that you get the right place for the fold. Like I said, nobody's going to see this but you. And as a matter of fact, it took me a while to find an actual regular type pencil. And mechanical pencils don't work quite as well because there's not as much lead exposed. Well, pencil graphite. Anyways, this is how it should look when you're done. It should have like an outline of the mold, the inside lines, if you will. I don't know if that's showing up on camera real well. I'll see that in the editing phase. But now I'm going to fold on each of those lines. Sorry for the loud noises from the paper, but I'm going to fold along the lines I've made so that I have a pretty good approximation of the mold size, where it is. So I'll put in a nice tight crease, and I'll do that on all four lines I drew. This works with any size mold, whether or not it's a shoebox or a real so-called soap mold, or if it's just a drawer that you found at a garage sale. Whatever you're using for a soap mold, this will work. Now what I oftentimes do is double check where the fold lines are to make sure that these are lining up. This fold is lining up with the fold down here. I don't know if you can see that, but so that I know I have a straight line. So now I've got all of the lines folded. Can you see that? Kind of, sort of. And since I don't need all of this paper, I'm going to cut kind of a U-shaped circle out of each corner to kind of eliminate the bulk. So out of each corner, I'm going to trim this corner off of each of the 4 corners in kind of a U-shaped fashion. It doesn't have to be exact, just leave about 1 inch or so from each of the folds so that you're not cutting into the folds or past the folds, but you're just cutting that excess off. And like I said, it doesn't have to be exact. Anyways, now I've got that. Now remember I said the shiny side is going to be the side that's going to be close to the soap. So I want that on the inside where the soap is going to be poured. My next step is to form the corners of the soap mold. So what I'm going to do is, I found it easier myself to kind of do this in a way that makes sense so that you fold up your sides and you get an idea of where those corners should be. If you line up your fold lines when you do this, you should be able to make for a nice fold along that corner. Now some people prefer to lay it on the table and line up those fold lines, and that works too. But when I did that initially, I had to take it up and figure out which side was supposed to be which. I wanted to put the fold inside instead of having it go to the outside. You want this to fold and all this bulk to be on the outside, so that when you line the soap mold, you have nothing in there in the corners. Now, if you did it inward, you have this folded paper. Can you see that? It would cause like a fold and a bulky part there. You want that bulky part to be on the outside away from your soap that you've poured. You want nice, smooth soap. So basically, you go around and you do these corners on all of your 4 corners. If you've done this a few times, it becomes second nature. You don't have to think as much about it. But in the beginning, I had to think about it. It just didn't come intuitively. So now I've got all those corners folded up. I'm going to do the 2 corners on one side of my mold. I'm going to go ahead and fold that up. Keep some tape handy. Get yourself a piece of Scotch tape. And then what I do is just temporarily kind of tape this. Whoops. Now that was a little too temporarily. Tape this so that your corner comes together. And I tape it on the end of the mold, and I'll go over that in just a second. The same thing applies on the other end. I'm doing the same idea. Just kind of temporarily taping that flap to the end of the mold. And that way I can set it down inside the mold easily. Now what I do is I run my fingers all along in all of the corners of all of the soap mold, the entire, all the way around. And make sure that it's seated all the way down into the corners. Because if you don't, check that out, it will be concave in the corners. In that concave, well, let me get my hand there, that concave, instead of a nice 90-degree corner, will cause your soap to have a rounded corner. And then you will be, have a lopsided soap that needs to be trimmed on the other corners to make it look even, and you don't want to do that. Now the other thing that I suggested was to have the folds on the outside, on the end here, have the bulk, not have it on the inside of your soap mold. You don't want the bulk in here, you want the bulk on the outside, on this paper side. Because if you had the folds and the bulk, it would all end up on the end of your soap. Or if you folded the flaps and the flaps ended up over here on the side, on the long side of your mold, then your flaps could extend several bars before you got rid of that bulky on the side. And you would have to trim more than you'd like. Now you say, oh, that's got a lot of high sides, I can't work with that. Well, now you go down the corner of this fold and you snip down to the corner. Into the corner. That's why you want to make sure it's seated all the way down there. Don't clip past. And you can do both layers at one time if you want, or do one layer at a time. You're clipping down that fold that you initially made. And like I said, you can clip down both of the folds, but you just basically want to get that trimmed down. Once you've trimmed it down, you can clip away these excess wings. These cuts go too deep past the side of your soap mold. Because ultimately what you want to do is be able to bring this over and tape it down. Now I go along and I trim off a little bit of the excess on all the sides. I leave a little bit to hang over. I don't want to get it too short. This is fine on this side. Now the idea is secure the sides down. Now you can use regular Scotch tape or painter's tape or whatever you want. Whatever works. Some people use binder clips. I do both ends of the mold. And I make sure if there's any bulk that I try to address that, get it nice and flat with my folds in the corners of the mold. And I want to make sure that I keep my fingers down there and make sure that that mold is not, or that paper actually, excuse me, is not coming away or up from the bottom edges of the mold. I want it to outline the mold as perfectly as possible. And again, I'm making sure that my fingers go all the way down into the crease, and that's going to make for a nice square bar of soap that needs little, if any, trimming. And as you can see, the ends of my mold haven't got the excess flaps there, and any little bulky edges will be cut off when I trim the ends of the loaf. You may be using a different type of mold, something that you found that wasn't a soap mold that could work perfectly as a soap mold. So there you have it. That's how I line my soap molds. Time to clean up, everybody. Hey, always leave things better than what you found them. Philosophy in life. That's one of the Beatitudes.